My journey into mastering neuro-adaptive learning began quietly, without any dramatic breakthrough or sudden revelation. It started with frustration. Despite years of study, I felt that traditional learning methods no longer matched the pace and complexity of the modern world. Information moved faster than textbooks, skills expired quickly, and attention felt increasingly fragile. I realized that the problem was not a lack of motivation, but a mismatch between how I was learning and how my brain actually worked. Neuro-adaptive learning introduced a new perspective. Instead of forcing the brain to conform to rigid schedules and standardized methods, it adapts learning experiences to the brain's current state. Focus, fatigue, curiosity, and emotional engagement are treated as valuable signals rather than distractions. This idea immediately resonated with me. Learning, I realized, was not a linear process, but a dynamic dialogue between mind and environment. At first, the concept felt abstract. I explored cognitive science, neuroscience, and educational psychology, slowly building an understanding of how attention, memory, and motivation interact. I learned about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself through experience, and how learning becomes more effective when it aligns with natural cognitive rhythms. Short, focused sessions followed by reflection proved more powerful than long, exhausting study marathons. Technology played a crucial role in this awakening. Adaptive platforms tracked my performance, adjusted difficulty, and responded to patterns in my behavior. When I struggled, the system slowed down. When I was engaged, it challenged me. This responsiveness created a sense of partnership rather than pressure. Learning stopped feeling like a test and began to feel like exploration. Emotion turned out to be just as important as logic. Neuro-adaptive learning emphasized curiosity, relevance, and personal meaning. Instead of memorizing isolated facts, I connected new knowledge to real-world problems and personal goals. This emotional anchoring strengthened retention and deepened understanding. I noticed that when learning felt meaningful, my brain naturally sought patterns and connections. The skill I chose to master was intentionally future proof, the ability to learn continuously and adapt across domains. Rather than focusing on a single technical skill, I focused on meta learning, learning how to learn. Neuro-adaptive systems helped me identify when to review, when to experiment, and when to rest. Progress became sustainable rather than exhausting. There were moments of doubt. The process required patience and self-awareness. Unlike traditional methods, There were no fixed timelines or clear comparisons with others. Progress was internal, measured by clarity and confidence rather than scores alone. Slowly, however, I felt a shift. Learning became calmer, more efficient, and more deeply integrated into daily life. By the end of this first phase, I understood that neuro-adaptive learning was not a shortcut. It was a long-term investment in alignment between mind, technology, and purpose. I had not mastered the skill yet, but I had discovered a method capable of evolving with me. That realization changed how I approached every new challenge that followed. As my practice of neuro-adaptive learning deepened, the effects extended far beyond study sessions. I began noticing changes in how I approached problems, uncertainty, and even failure. Learning was no longer something I scheduled, it became a continuous process woven into everyday decisions. This shift marked the transition from technique to mindset. One of the most powerful lessons was learning to listen to cognitive feedback. Mental fatigue was no longer a sign of weakness, but information. When focus declined, I adjusted tasks instead of forcing productivity. When curiosity peaked, I followed it without guilt. This responsiveness preserved energy and prevented burnout, a critical advantage in a fast-changing world. Neural adaptive learning also reshaped how I dealt with complexity. Instead of seeking immediate mastery, I learned to tolerate uncertainty. Adaptive systems encouraged exploration, allowing me to test ideas, make mistakes, and refine understanding over time. This mirrored real-world problem-solving more closely than traditional instruction ever had. Collaboration became more meaningful as well. Understanding my own cognitive patterns helped me appreciate differences in others. Some people learned best through discussion, others through visualization or practice. Neural adaptive frameworks respected this diversity, making teamwork more effective. A future-proof skill, I realized, must function not only individually, but collectively. Technology continued to evolve alongside my learning. Artificial intelligence provided insights into my habits, highlighting blind spots and strengths. Yet I remained cautious. True mastery required balance. I used technology as a guide, not a replacement for judgment. Reflection remained essential. After each learning cycle, I reviewed not just what I learned, but how I learned it. The future-proof nature of this skill became increasingly clear. Industries change, tools become obsolete, and roles disappear. But the ability to adapt cognitively, to acquire new skills efficiently and release outdated ones, remains valuable across all contexts. Neural adaptive learning provided a structure for lifelong growth without constant reinvention. Perhaps the most profound change was emotional. Learning lost its association with anxiety and comparison. Progress became personal and purposeful. I measured success by resilience and adaptability rather than speed alone. This emotional stability created space for creativity and long-term thinking. Looking ahead, I see neural adaptive learning not as a trend, but as a necessary evolution. As information environments grow more complex, humans must learn in ways that respect cognitive limits while expanding potential. My journey is ongoing, but the foundation is strong. Mastering neural adaptive learning did not make me faster in every moment, but it made me sustainable. In a future defined by constant change, that may be the most valuable skill of all. As neuroadaptive learning became more familiar, the next challenge was integration. Understanding the theory and practicing within structured systems was only the beginning. The real test was whether this way of learning could survive outside ideal conditions, during busy days, emotional stress, and unpredictable demands. Slowly, I began to embed neuroadaptive principles into everyday life. Work became my primary testing ground. Instead of treating tasks as fixed obligations, I learned to align them with my cognitive state. Deep analytical work was scheduled during peak focus periods, while routine tasks filled low energy moments. This simple adjustment improved both performance and satisfaction. I was no longer fighting my brain, I was cooperating with it. Feedback loops became central. After completing projects, I reflected not only on outcomes, but on mental patterns. Where did attention drift? When did motivation rise? Over time, these reflections formed a personal cognitive map. Neuroadaptive learning taught me that self-awareness is not introspection for its own sake, but data for better decisions. Failure also changed meaning. When a learning attempt failed, I no longer saw it as evidence of inability. Instead, I analyzed the conditions. Was the challenge too complex? Was the timing wrong? Was emotional context interfering? This reframing reduced fear and encouraged experimentation. Failure became information rather than judgment. Social environments presented another layer of adaptation. Meetings, conversations, and collaborations all demanded cognitive flexibility. Understanding neuroadaptive principles helped me listen more effectively and communicate with greater clarity. I learned to pause when overwhelmed, to ask better questions, and to recognize when others needed space or stimulation. Learning extended beyond content into human interaction. Discipline remained important, but its definition evolved. It was no longer about rigid consistency, but about responsive commitment. Showing up every day did not mean doing the same thing every day. It meant engaging thoughtfully, adjusting strategies, and maintaining momentum without self-punishment. Over time, this approach reduced mental noise. Decisions felt clearer because they were grounded in awareness rather than urgency. Neuro-adaptive learning helped filter information, prioritize relevance, and let go of unnecessary inputs. In an age of constant distraction, this selective focus became a competitive advantage. What surprised me most was how this learning style reshaped identity. I stopped labeling myself by what I already knew and started identifying as someone who could evolve. This subtle shift dissolved anxiety about the future. Skills might change, but the ability to acquire them remains stable. By fully integrating neuro-adaptive learning into real life, I realized that mastery was not a destination. It was a pattern of interaction with change, one that balanced effort, rest, curiosity, and reflection. This balance prepared me for challenges that had not yet appeared. As the world continues to change at accelerating speed, the value of neuro-adaptive learning becomes increasingly clear. Automation, artificial intelligence, and global uncertainty constantly reshape what skills matter. In this environment, static expertise fades quickly. What endures is the capacity to adapt, relearn, and remain cognitively flexible. Neuro-adaptive learning provides a framework for thriving within uncertainty rather than resisting it. By recognizing mental limits and strengths, it encourages sustainable performance. Instead of chasing constant optimization, it prioritizes long-term resilience. This perspective shifts success from short-term achievement to enduring relevance. One of the most important insights I gained was that future-proof skills are rarely technical alone. They are deeply human. Curiosity, emotional regulation, critical thinking, and adaptability cannot be easily automated. Neuro-adaptive learning strengthens these qualities by aligning education with how the brain naturally functions. The role of technology continues to evolve. Adaptive systems become more accurate, predictive, and personalized. Yet the responsibility remains human. Choosing when to trust automation and when to rely on intuition requires judgment. Neuro-adaptive learning does not remove this responsibility, it sharpens it. Awareness becomes the core skill that guides all others. This journey also reshaped my relationship with time. Instead of rushing to keep up, I learned to pace growth intentionally. Some periods required rapid acquisition, others demanded consolidation. Respecting these cycles prevented burnout and preserved motivation. Progress became rhythmic rather than frantic. Looking ahead, I see neuro-adaptive learning spreading beyond individuals into organizations and societies. Education systems may shift from standardized instruction to personalized pathways. Workplaces may value adaptability over credentials. Communities may recognize learning as a lifelong shared process rather than a phase of youth. The most profound outcome, however, is internal. Mastering neuroadaptive learning cultivated trust in my own capacity to change. That trust reduced fear of obsolescence and replaced it with curiosity. The future no longer felt like a threat to prepare against, but a landscape to explore. My journey is ongoing. There is no final mastery, only deeper alignment. Yet this skill, learning how to learn in harmony with the brain, has proven itself resilient across contexts. It adapts as the world adapts. In a future defined by uncertainty, the ability to remain cognitively flexible, emotionally grounded, and continuously curious may be the most reliable foundation we can build. Neuro-adaptive learning does not promise certainty. It offers something more valuable, the confidence to grow no matter what comes next.